Wow. Okay. And we are back once again, everybody. Welcome to the Toffee Blues Late Night USA American Extravaganza Show of the Century. I'm your host, Forrest Londa, the guy who lives in Annapolis, Maryland. That's all I got to introduce myself with. And I'm here today, not with Quinn, not with Danny, but with someone who might be a familiar face to a few of you, Mr. Jacob Holton. Jacob, say hello to the folks.
Hey everybody, it's been a while since I've been on a Toffee Blues show, so it's good to be back.
It's good to have Jacob back. Jacob, do you want to just refresh everybody on who you are and what Everton means to you so that I don't have to tell them?
Yes, absolutely. Obviously, he said my name is Jacob. I live in Cincinnati, Ohio. I have lived here my entire life. I believe outside of Liverpool, it is one of the greatest cities on planet Earth. I have been supporting Everton for 10 years now. 2014, 2015 was my first season. Obviously, we've gone through a bit of a roller coaster since then. There's been some ups, there's been a lot more downs, but we are moving into what seems like a new era and a really refreshing era. And I'm really excited. And this club, obviously, this club means the world to me. I've been to Goodison one time now. It's probably the only time I'll get to go, which is sad. But that memory will stay with me forever.
Yes, I'm glad you did get to experience Goodison because that is one thing that every Evertonian will need to experience. Obviously, new ones in the future will get that opportunity. They'll have to live off stories and pictures. But Goodison is such a unique and amazing ground and really is Everton's, home. It will always be its home. Regardless of what happens at Bramley Moore, Goodison will always be so iconic and so true and unique to who Everton are. Um, our show today, folks, we're going to be talking a lot about transfers because there's just been a lot that's been happening with transfers. Honestly, a lot of talk, a lot of news. It is truly, as they call it, silly season. I love silly season. I tell you what, when I play Football Manager, when I play FIFA, half the fun, really 75% of the fun is the transfer windows because it's just fun to spend some money that's not real. It's fun to spend some money that's not your own because it's like, hey, this isn't going to come back and haunt me in my nightmares. Um, so we've got a few players to talk about today, Jacob and I. We're going to start off with somebody that is really familiar to all of us as Evertonians, but we're very happy to see back at the club, our one and only from Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It's Jack Harrison. He's back at the club on loan from Leeds for probably a nominal fee. And depending on how the season goes for him and how it goes for Leeds, a permanent transfer probably next season. Jacob, how do you feel about Jack being back?
So, obviously he was not the player that he probably wanted to be last season and probably the player that Everton would have liked to have seen last season. We did see a couple of flashes from him last season, some really brilliant stuff. Like his first goal was, one of the goals of the season for Everton.
Oh, yeah.
It's a ball that's punched out by the keeper and he just volleys it back in across the box and under the crossbar, off the underside of the crossbar, really. Um, he's a body. We need wingers. He fits that mold. He's aware of how Sean Dyche wants to play, which is something that is important, I think. And he understands what Sean Dyche is going to ask of him and what he's going to ask of the team. It's another year for him to kind of gel with this squad too, which is helpful. Being on loan is probably really hard because you don't know if you're going to stay. You don't know, you're living there for a year. Like your living situation is not permanent. So I think it's going to help him coming back to the same squad and the same team. And hopefully we see more of the Jack Harrison that we saw at Leeds.
Yes, he definitely, if you look at his numbers, 4 goals, 3 assists, 36 appearances over the whole season, playing on the right wing as a left-footed winger. He definitely was put in a position that he didn't get asked to play a lot of at Leeds. Being the kind of winger who's going to cut in and put in that ball at the back post definitely did not seem to be very natural for him for a lot of the games. What he did was what Sean Dyche likes the most is he worked hard for the team. He made sure he tracked back. He made sure that he worked hard when he lost the ball to get it back, and in transition was almost always in the places that he needed to be, whether it was his touch or his ability to let him down. I'm happy to see him back. I agree he is a good body to have and a good squad player. I think ideally he is not somebody that we would see starting week in, week out like we saw throughout most of the season. But it seemed like a no-brainer. He's a player that enjoyed playing at the club. He's a player that wanted to come back. He's a player that fit Sean Dyche's model of a player. So it's good. It's what we need, a cheap transfer and one that keeps the team together as much as possible with the way that it was last season. All right, so Jack Harrison, as we all have agreed, is back. Jack is back, and we're happy with that. Our next transfer, Tim, and we're all gonna have to learn to say this name, but it's Tim Irabunum. That G is silent. I probably still didn't say it completely correct, but that's okay. I'm not great with names, so I'm sitting here reading this. I haven't put any hyphens or any pronunciation mark on it. But we have bought this young man, 20-year-old center midfielder from Aston Villa. Young man made 18 appearances with no goals, no assists last season for Aston Villa in their first team. He's a right-footed player. And yeah, last season was his real breakout. Oh, I'm blurry as heck again. Was his real breakout season into Villa's first team. Jacob, what do you think about this?
So it seems like by all accounts, Villa fans were pretty sad to see him go. It seems like he was right on the cusp of maybe, breaking into the first team permanently, depending on what happened. I mean, they are losing Douglas Luiz. I know they brought in a couple of players to try to supplement his loss to Juventus, but these are the kind of transfers that you kind of hope for when you're in Everton's position. He's a young center mid who's playing for England youth squads, and he's just now breaking into the league, and Everton have a chance to probably give him some playing time. I mean, you're looking at Amadou Onana's probably moving on this season. Idrissa Gana Gueye is not getting any younger. It's not that he played bad last season. In fact, he was one of the players of the season for Everton, but, you're going to need some younger players. You're going to need Garner to step up in the midfield, and you're going to need other guys. And Tim, I'm just going to call him Tim. I haven't tried to pronounce his last name yet. We're going to get there. I'm going to get there. I'm not just going to call him Tim, but that's kind of what he's referred to in the group chat that I'm in. So for now, but I think he's going to be a good player. I'm excited to see what he has. And, he's definitely going to come here and he's going to be ready to play, and he's going to be ready to show Sean Dyche that he's worth a slot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you go and you look up highlights of players like we always do when we sign somebody new, you're kind of looking to see some spark in something. There wasn't a lot on young Tim on YouTube. There were a few bits and pieces of his time on loan at QPR where he had some good spots to play. But to me, he seems like a player that will still need to develop a bit in terms of being able to come to the Premier League and be a player that starts and be a player that impacts games. He had many substitute appearances for Villa and was in and around the bench all season for them. So that definitely speaks to the fact that there was a belief in his ability as a player. Obviously, benches are a little bit bigger, but at the end of the day, Villa saw something in him that was worth £10 million. Obviously, we can all start to talk about the the fair market value, but we'll get to that later. I agree with you. I'm very happy to see us going after young players. I'm very happy to see us looking to develop players because that's something that we as a club were not doing for years under Mashiri and under Steve Walsh and under Ronald Koeman and all these other managers that we had. Is we were trying to buy the ready-made product in terms of like the Gylfi Sigurdssons, the Davy Claessens, even though he wasn't the oldest player. We were still trying to buy these players that maybe were a bit more proven and win with that. And we weren't really mixing in the right amount of youth. And now we're getting this opportunity to mix in the youth, and we're aiming for this youth and aiming to develop. And I think that's starting to show in the way that certain players are looking to us and saying, well, I can go there and develop for 2 to 3 to 4 seasons. And hey, if we get to the spot, the heights that I want to get to, Champions League, etc., then I can stick around. If we don't, then I'll move on. The club get a great transfer fee. They're able to reinvest that back into the club, and it's a healthy relationship that the club really need right now in terms of being able to balance themselves and balance their books.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So Tim is in. Our next one is one that has been pretty heavily rumored. We got the here we go from Fabrizio Romano on him. But he is a center forward / second striker who played in England with Sheffield United and is now at Marseille. Marseille? Am I going crazy? Is that Marseille?
Marseille, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Marseille, at Marseille in France. It's Iliman Ndiaye. Again, when it comes to pronunciation, man, it's just kind of, you think you get it down right, and then you actually try to your lips, and it's like it sounds like you're fumbling over everything. But we've got this 24-year-old attacker coming in who just had a season at Marseille, 4 goals, five assists, and 46 appearances across all competitions. He had 14 goals and 11 assists in the championship before with Sheffield United. He's a right-footed attacker. And how are you feeling about him, Jake?
So this is another good one. This is another one where, obviously he's younger, but he's 24 years old, I believe.
Yep.
If you go back, and obviously the championship is a lot different league than the Premier League, but he had people on strings in the championship. You watch some of the highlights of him playing in the championship, and his close control is something that really stuck out to me. When he's got a defender close to him, it's like the ball is glued to his boot. He moves it around really quickly, and he's a good finisher. He's a good distributor too. I don't know if Sean Dyche is going to want to play him as a striker. I don't know if he's going to want to play him as a winger. I don't know. But it seems like he could move around and kind of be comfortable. Personally, I think he would work fine as a striker. Obviously, right now we have Dominic Calvert-Lewin, so he's not needed to be the guy if that is the case. We'll see what happens this summer. Whether or not Dom moves or he signs a new contract or what have you. But it's a good player to have because it seems like he's got some versatility to him. And the more important thing, and the thing I was thinking about earlier today when when it was official from Fabrizio Romano that he's likely to sign his contract, is he's got creativity, something that was severely lacking last season. Obviously Abdoulaye Doucouré wasn't as good as he was in previous seasons, and he was a little bit injured, so it's not all his fault. But that's something. Oh, sorry.
We just lost you for a second. That's all.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I touched something on my phone. Sorry. Anyway, so his creativity was something that we were sorely missing. Was my ending point.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. So I definitely took some time to look into Iliman, and you go on YouTube and try to see his highlights and stuff. And man, that guy's electric. I know. So you when you look at like a player like this who is like seen as like an attacking talent, and you want to go and look at the numbers first, right? And what he's done, what he's actually produced. The guy only had 4 goals and 5 assists across 46 appearances all season. You look at that and you think, wow, he didn't really accomplish much. But when you look, you're exactly right. He is creative. And what he is that center midfield, like attacking midfielder piece that we've really been missing in this team. That Dwight McNeil kind of started to be a little bit towards the end of the season last year.
Yeah.
But what we really need. He's electric. He's what I really picked up on in those, and again, they're just highlights. I didn't have time to watch full games or didn't really know where to go to look for full Marseille games. But the guy has such a great center of balance and such great strength. That guy, he dragged defenders with him everywhere he was going. He was getting his way around them. He was so set on keeping that ball with him and moving play forward. He looks like he has a great pass on him. Looks like he's got a great touch, a decent finish. I mean, he's still a fairly young man, but he's got experience. He's got a little bit of experience in England. I think he had a little bit of experience in the Premier League. I'm not quite sure if he played for Sheffield United or not in the Premier League, but he's a guy who's going to come in, who's gotten some European experience, who's gotten some experience in a top 5 league in Europe. And I mean, I'm excited to see him play. I hope he holds up. I hope he's not a player that struggles with injury. It didn't seem like there was much on him as far as injuries go on Transfer Market, which is where I go just to get some stats. But I'm excited for him, honestly. He's the kind of player that I've been wishing we would sign for a while. There's a little bit of some Pinar about him. Pinar was a bit more slight and a bit more about subtlety, whereas Ndia kind of just runs through people in terms of like just holding off people with his strength. But there is that creativity and that impulsiveness and unpredictability about him that we really, really need in the squad, because too often we're a very predictable team. Too often it's Dwight McNeil trying to swing it across with his left foot. Too often it's Jack Harrison cutting in and trying to play across. To have somebody that pitch who can, one, get the fans off their seats. You think of like a De La Feu back in the day, right? And then 2, can sit there and make defenders worry when he has the ball and drag defenders to him away from other players. That just opens up space and totally opens up what we can actually make happen during a game. I'm very excited about this man. and I just hope it's something that works out for us in the end.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else to add, Jake?
No, I mean, I think we covered it. I mean, I'm excited. He's a
Yes.
good one, and to get him in is no small feat. So I'm really excited to watch him play.
Agreed. All right. So our next one is one that has been linked just about all summer, and one that is definitely got a pretty hefty price tag attached to him, and one that there's no real guarantee that it'll happen because there seems to be a lot of factors that are going into it. But we are talking about the only Yankuba Minta, who was on loan at Feyenoord last season and is from Newcastle. This guy is electric. He's 19 years old. He had 37 appearances for Feyenoord last season, 11 goals, 6 assists, playing mostly on the right wing, in a team that finished second in the Eredivisie last season. He's an established international for the Gambia. Obviously, it's the Gambia. It's not a very prevalent African nation, but at 19 years old, being a guy who will continuously be one of the first names on the team sheet for his international team means a lot. And he's also left-footed right winger. Obviously, like he can play across the front line, but where he plays in the wing, he's left-footed. He likes to cut in from the right and play in. But he's the kind of player who can also play in the left and be a natural winger and use his left foot. What do you think about him, Jacob?
In my opinion, this would be the signing of the summer.
Yeah.
Something that Everton have really been crying out for a long time, for almost as long as I've been watching Everton. You know, obviously we had Gerald De La Feu when I was around, but really quality wingers who scare the fullback that they're running at, and has the ability to take on multiple defenders and beat them and put a ball in the box or curl it with his left foot into the far corner.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this is exactly who you want, and this is really somebody that Everton would die for. Currently, and we obviously talked about Jack Harrison is here. He's currently probably your starting right winger. If you could pair him with Dwight McNeil perhaps on the left side, I mean, you're talking about two guys they'd play off each other really well, I think. And he would help out any striker that we have who's starting. I mean, he's incredible. And I know I know the Eredivisie is not the strongest league in the world, but I know he also played in European competition this year.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not, those aren't slouches that he's going up against. I'm sure they went up against some good teams. So I don't think it's going to happen, but if they can make this happen, I think he's got potential to be the signing of the summer.
Yes, I agree completely. One of my good friends kind of put it to me this way. He's one of those players that if we don't sign, he's going to be along the lines of like a Luis Diaz, where it's like, well, gosh, like we missed out on a player of like mercurial talent, like this kind of guy that like how like oh we could have had him. It's like all the stories about how we could have had Erling Haaland back in the day. Like it's just one of those players that like is the future of football. Is one of those future stars. Is one of those guys that people are going to be is going to be a household name. And one that we'd really love to see at Everton, and one that would just do well for the club right now. And again, follows in those same values that the club seem to be looking for right now. When a player is young, is exciting, is fairly proven in the top league, and is one that again, the reports that have come out today wants to play at Everton. He is like everything that we're seeing today. You have to take every little bit of media with a bunch of grains of salt. But everything we've seen today is. The guy is set on playing for Everton. That's where he wants to go. He wouldn't accept an offer from Lyon while Everton are still at the table. He wants to play for Deitch. I mean, that just speaks volumes. Again, that those sort of things are coming out. I don't know if that's just his agent trying to get Everton to do more business, whatever it may be, but it's just good to see that. It again adds on to the feel good factor that we've had so far this summer. And it's funny. I just want to touch on this. There's one more player that plays at Feyenoord that I would really love to see Everton sign. He's a young Mexican striker named Santiago Jimenez. That guy is the real deal. He's 23 years old. He had 26 goals in the Eredivisie last season, second leading scorer. He is a star. He's better than Raul Jimenez ever was. He's 23 years old. He's got a real bright future ahead of him. He will leave Feyenoord within the next season or two, maybe even this summer. He will go somewhere good, and he will continue to be good and continue to develop. That is a player I'd love to see at Everton as well. Um, all right, our next one is a right back who played for Luton last season on loan from City. His name is Issa Kabore. 26 appearances, 0 goals, 2 assists. He was on loan at Marseille the year before that. He's a 23-year-old, obviously right-footed right back. Do you know much about him, Jacob?
I don't know a ton. All I know is that every time that I watch Luton Town play, I'm like, man, this Issa Kabore gets after it, and he's a real player. Um, right back is sneakily, because it seems like Dyche really doesn't have any trust in Nathan Patterson at all. Right back is a position that is a big need for Everton this summer. Issa Kabore is brilliant. He's a brilliant player. He's a little bit raw defensively, I think, um, but going forward, he would be better than Seamus Coleman. He would be even probably better than what Nathan Patterson is going forward. And Nathan Patterson, he's got a wand of a right foot on him. He delivers a good cross. But I would be very excited for Issa Kabore. And I think if need be, you could even push him further up the pitch. But I wouldn't want to do that. I would want to keep him at right back. He's a player I don't see Manchester City letting him go unless there would be a buyback clause, because they just signed him to a new contract last summer before they sent him out on loan to Luton Town. So it's one that really excites me, but I'm trying not to get too excited, because he would also be just what you want, young, up and coming. He's an exciting player, and he would be somebody that Dyche would be excited to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, I think I also think that the right back position is one that we really do need to address this summer. And if we don't, especially if Deitch does not have good feelings about Patterson and would rather see him go on loan or leave the club completely, it's one that I would expect us to address, whether that's Kabori or somebody else. I don't have another name in my pocket that I could pull out of that I think we could go for. Because Max Aarons is not in favor for anybody anymore. But yeah, I mean, if the price that's kind of floated around is 10 to 13 million, that seems like a decent price. Whether or not we could possibly get him on loan again, who knows? That would seems like a possibility where we could get him on loan and have a sort of a view to a move in the summer, or whether that's obligatory or not. Well, we'd have to see. But yeah, I mean, it's good that we're being linked with right backs. Hopefully, we continue to be linked with more if Kabore doesn't happen, because we do need to have cover for Seamus Coleman. The guy is, 37, 38 years old now. He can't continue to play 30 to 35 games a season. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, he can't. He can't. You have failed Seamus Coleman if you're having him start every week starting the Premier League season. You've just failed him.
Yeah, you're hanging him out the door. A lot, and a lot. I think a lot of fans, maybe not British fans, but a lot of Americans fans might even say that about Tim Howard to an extent, and the end of his time at the club, where he didn't really have a replacement, and he was started to go down the hill, and he kind of knew it, and people and the fans kind of knew it, but his reputation got tarnished a bit because he had a couple of seasons where he just didn't have the challenge or the backup of the replacement of quality to be able to back him up, and so he kind of had to deal with just playing every week. And obviously, he wants to play; he's a professional,
right?
But you would hate to see that happen. Obviously, Coleman has a bit more, I guess, time with fans. Tim Howard seemed to always kind of be on the fence with a lot of British fans, but yeah, love to see Kabore. We'll see what happens with him. Our next one is another player who isn't quite had like crazy concrete links yet, but is one that we seem to check a lot of boxes for us in terms of the position, in terms of the type of transfer would be. It's Wilfred Ndidi from Leicester. 36 appearances, 6 goals, 6 assists in the championship last season for champions Leicester. He's a defensive midfielder, 27-year-old, right-footed. To me, and it's going to be a free transfer. He is out of contract. To me, it just seems like it adds up well. Plenty of Premier League experience. Obviously, he's been relegated with Leicester before. But he came in the year after they won the league and has been there since. So he's obviously a very loyal player. He's a player who's able to have longevity at a club, which means that he's probably a very mature player as well. And it's something that we could use in midfield, especially if we're losing a player like Amadou Onana soon.
He is a really solid player. He's a no son. He's blah, 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 blah. He's a no nonsense defensive midfielder who I've kind of been a big fan of for a couple of seasons. A couple of seasons before Leicester went down, when he was still 24, 25. I was like, man, it would be really something. And this was before Idrissa Gueye came back. I'm like, man, it would be really something. And we were broke. We didn't have any money. So it was never going to happen. But I'm like, it would be really something if we could bring somebody like Wilfred Ndidi into this team, because he's kind of something that we needed at the time. And I still think, obviously midfield depth is something that we're going to need this season. And it's a free transfer. Obviously nothing is free. The wages would still have to be paid or whatever. But, I feel like this is a team that he should want to play for. It's the last season at Goodison Park, which, doesn't really mean anything to him. But however, we're about to move into a brand new stadium, a new state-of-the-art stadium. He's still in his prime. Everton finished with 40 points with points deducted last season. They would have been in the top half or near the top half of the table last season. Like, we're about to go into a new era. We've got a new owner. We're going to have a bunch of, eventually a bunch of new, young, exciting players to play with. I just think it makes a lot of sense, and it would be a signing I'd be happy with.
Yeah, I think especially if he's looking for a change of scenery, it would be hard to look past Everton, because really Everton is a step up from just about I shouldn't say just about every, but from most clubs, Everton's a step up, especially in the UK. Everton is a step up for most clubs, even with where we've been at over the past 2 seasons. The size of Everton, the prestige, the just everything that goes into playing for a club like Everton really is like, I'm stepping into the ranks of the big boys now. Obviously, again, like we can't big ourselves up too much, because we've been struggling. We've not been a club that's had all their ducks in a row for a while, and that speaks volumes in terms of our international impact and fans and such. But the romantic in me thinks, like, if I was a player, I have an opportunity to go somewhere in a free transfer. I want to stay in the country that I'm already playing in. Who better than a club that is an established Premier League team that's about to have their last season at their over 100-year-old stadium? Like, the fans are going to be up for it every game. You're going to have the backing of everybody every game. And then after that, you get to go to a beautiful brand new stadium on a river, state of the art. Like, I just, to me, that seems like, yeah, I'm going to go and spend the last 4 to 5 best years of my career at a club like Everton, give them my all, leave hopefully as seen as a great player and a cult icon, whatever may happen, and be able to say that I made that impact. To me, that just seems like a no-brainer, especially having played for a team like Leicester for so long. I don't want to throw a lot of shade on Leicester. I don't want to throw a lot of shade on any teams, but Leicester are not Everton. Leicester obviously have won 2 trophies then before we've won one in a while. So you can't take away from their achievements. But when you talk about size and stature of clubs, there's a pretty sizable gap between Leicester and Everton. So yes, I would love to see him come in. I think he really fits what we're looking for in terms of a player and what we're looking for in terms of a transfer. I have one more. And did you have anything else you wanted to add, Jacob?
No, not really. No.
Good, no worries. I have one more player I want to touch on. It's Wilfred Gnonto from Leeds. Not anything real concrete from him, but he's a player that I feel like if Mensah doesn't come through, will be recycled back into Hay. He's going to get to the news cycle and might be a player that we end up getting in. Guy had 44 appearances, 9 goals, 3 assists for Leeds last season in the Championship. He's a right-footed right winger, so he's a true right winger. I don't think he necessarily played on that side for Leeds most of the season. I think he switched between left and right pretty often, so he's the kind of player who would cut in. We obviously had a pretty lengthy transfer saga with him last year, and it seems like he would still be quite interested in joining, especially since Leeds didn't come up. Jacob, would you have him?
Yeah, I think so. Like you said, he's played on the right and the left for Leeds. He can do both. Mm-hmm. He is a player who very, very clearly wanted to come to Everton last summer. He made that very adamant to Leeds, and unfortunately, Everton were still in a financial situation where they couldn't make that happen. But you have to believe that if they could have, they would have last summer. And it's just, it really seems like, I know, I like we've just talked about, Everton have kind of been in the mire for a little while, but you always hear about these players every summer who I would like to go to Everton. It's between
Yeah.
a couple of clubs in Everton. I want to go to Everton. You heard that with Amadou Onana when he came to Everton. He chose Everton. Minta, he wants to come to Everton. Nanto, he wants to come to Everton. Players want to play here. And every time a player leaves, you hear about my best times were at Everton.
Genuinely.
You hear it all the time.
Or Charles.
But past all of that, he's a good player. Obviously he didn't have a dynamite season in the championship, but we've seen how he plays in the Premier League. Maybe his heart wasn't fully in it. I don't know. I doubt it. He's a professional player. He's a pro. So I'm sure he went out there and tried his
Young
hardest.
man still. I mean, he's 19, 20 years old.
Right.
You could see why maybe he didn't really feel like this is where he belongs. So, but you don't want to throw that on him because that's a lot. That's a pretty heavy accusation to put on a player.
And to be honest with you, he was playing for a manager that I don't rate. I know they made the playoff, but Farker's not really a great manager in my opinion. That's just me, but that I'd have him though. If Minta doesn't work out, I would absolutely have Wilfred Nanto. Bring him on.
Agreed completely. Yes, bring in Yanto, the Italian one. Kind of sounds like gnocchi. It brings it on. I love it. That's it as far as incomings. Gosh, we're both stumbling over our words here, man. Liquid death.
It's contagious.
Yeah.
Liquid death.
Yeah,
yes. That's good stuff.
So we've got a couple of outgoings to talk about. First and foremost, Ben Godfrey deal agreed with Atalanta. 10 to 12 million, I think, is the fee for a player in the last year of his contract. He was a good servant for us for a while, and I think this deal works out for everybody. What do you think?
Yeah, could be. I don't know. I'm not a financial expert, but it could be a deal that seals up the PSR gap that we have.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, Ben Godfrey told us, told the club earlier this summer that he wasn't going to sign a new deal. So this was pretty much always inevitable. Yes. I think for him, Serie A is a great place to land, and you're landing at a place that just won a European
club too. Yeah,
you're landing at a place that just won a title, a European championship, and they beat a team that was unbeaten, and they beat the bricks off them. So I mean, if you're Ben Godfrey, you have to be excited.
Yep.
For Everton, it's good for them. They get 10 plus add-ons, I think, is what the deal was said to be. If you're not PSR compliant, you are really, really close to being PSR compliant now. So, you really only need one more deal, if that, to do that by the end of this. Well, by Sunday. So, it's a good deal for both teams. I think he's going to tear it up in Serie A. I've got a couple of friends who watch Serie A pretty regularly, and they think that he's gonna go in there and he's gonna restart his career, and he's gonna be a really good player there.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's going to go to a team that already has a former Everton product in Adam Olukman there, so he's going to have a player that he at least is familiar with, and he's going to get to go and play in Italy and play for a club that's going to be in the Champions League. Like for me, I was obviously a no-brainer for him. I'm happy for the guy because he always came in and gave his all for Everton. He didn't want to stay, so it was always going to be that he was going to leave, and I'm just glad that we're getting a fairly decent fee for him. So good luck to Ben Godfrey.
One more note on Ben Godfrey. He had one of the more hilarious moments during the COVID season. They scored the goal to make it 3-3 late against Manchester United.
Yeah.
And he yells back towards the Manchester United players to F off or whatever. He told them. And Mark Goldbridge on Twitter lost his mind. And by the way, that guy, he needs to give it a rest on Twitter. Let me tell you.
Well, how could he? I mean, he's making so much money, getting so much prestige.
He is begging Everton to just hand Jared Branthwaite to Manchester United, like it's Manchester United's birthright.
We're done talking about these outgoings. Let's just get right into what's happened today, because it's just kind of ridiculous. So if you didn't see the news today, the Premier League sent out a letter to all 20 clubs, basically warning them that transfers need to be within fair market value, that they need to be within arm's reach. All these little jargon terminology things that they want to use to basically say, hey, you guys need to sell the right players to the right club. Because what you're doing right now is unacceptable. I don't know what you think you're doing trying to sell players to each other, but if I don't see Jarrett Branthwaite moving to Manchester United for $25 million in the next week, you're going to get in trouble. It's ridiculous. It's crazy.
The set of stones on Richard Masters has got to be ginormous. I mean, first off, how would you even go about proving that it's not fair market value for a player? How are you supposed to go about proving that? What, you're going to go on transfermarket.com and be like, well, transfermarket.com says he's worth this much money. Well, what does that mean? Like
that value, right? Like,
it's like,
who are you to tell a club what they should sell a player for, or what they should buy a player for? Like,
it's just like, and they sent it to all 20 clubs. Why did they send it to all 20 clubs? They didn't need to send it to all 20 clubs. They could have just sent it to 14 clubs and called it a day.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
they don't matter.
Well, since when did Chelsea do these kind of deals? Like they find other loopholes to exploit. Like, you're allowed to sell a hotel to yourself for hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever it was, but Everton and Aston Villa swapping Tim and Lewis Dobbin for 10 million apiece is all of a sudden a huge crime. Like, I just don't get it. Doesn't make any sense. You're basically telling everybody who's not your favorite club's Premier League that they're not allowed to operate unless the Premier League deems it fit. That's just ridiculous.
Yep. Yeah, you're not giving these. It just seems like every single thing that any club that isn't Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Tottenham, or Manchester United, or Manchester City do is heavily scrutinized, not just by the Premier League and Richard Masters, but by the media. The media just come in and are like, whoa, hold up now, guys. Aston Villa and Everton just switched players for two. I feel like freaking, what's his name from, I think he should leave right now, but just like they just did this right in front of our faces. Like, that can't happen. Well, somebody get to the Daily Mirror right now. Like, we need John Cross from the Sun on this. It's just wild to me. It is wild.
Where's Matt Hughes at?
Matt Hughes, good. It's just wild how much anger and frustration there is from people in the media and from people in the Premier League about this, when it's like, look, what do you want these clubs to do? What is the framework that you have in mind that each of these clubs have to be run over? Because you want each of these clubs to be run the exact same way, which means that they're run to benefit only the clubs above them. This isn't the Bundesliga. Not everybody serves the Bayern Munich here, okay? This is supposed to be a parity-driven league. And yet you're not really trying to make that happen. Aston Villa breaking into the top 4 last season was probably such a fucking – oh, I'm so sorry. I said that rule before. It was probably such a headache for Richard Masters, because he's like, oh, are you kidding me? Like, now I'm going to have to deal with all the crap from Chelsea and all the crap from Tottenham, because they're all complaining because Villa got into the top 4. And they're going to be like, we want Villa's players, man. You better make sure that we can get those players and that they go to us. They're not going to Europe. They're going to Manchester United. They're going to Manchester City, and they're going to Arsenal or whoever. It's just mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling, and they're continuing to move goalposts and set up new rules for these issues that are just, at the end of the day, like, just come out and say what you really mean, because you're beating around the bush with some of this stuff. Like, it just like you said, they send it to all 20 clubs. They really should have just sent it to Aston Villa and to Everton, and maybe and just said, hey guys, like, we see what you're doing. Like, you think you're being slick, you can't get away with it like that. But it's just silly. It's silly, and they don't want it to be fair. Like, financial fair play is not a thing. They do not want it to be fair. They want these clubs to serve the other the big 6 clubs. And they want those other clubs to be compliant and to fall into line. And Richard Masters says, and maybe one day you'll dangle a carrot of a little top 6 finish in front of you, and then you'll be happy and you'll be placated. But that's not the way it works. We want to win things. You want to push. The whole point of soccer is upsetting the status quo. It is not about the same thing every season. It's about difference. It's about parity. It's about improvement. And if you're not letting clubs do that, then what's the point? What are we watching? We're watching a farce. We're watching a made-up league. So,
well, you can kind of tell how scared Richard Masters and really the Premier League are of other clubs figuring out a way to kind of skirt the rules or slightly cook the books or whatever you want to say. I mean, this is minuscule. This is nothing. This is not. Lewis Dobbin does not make Aston Villa a threat to once again crack into the top four. And I'm sorry,
that's kind of the point, isn't it? That's like
right.
what they're trying to latch onto is like, well, when you just signed this player that only has like 10 Premier League appearances for £10 million, it's like, yeah, but so what? That's not the point. You're paying for potential. You're not paying for what the player is now. You're paying for what that player might be. And who are you to tell this club what they think, what you think that player actually is going to be? Because at this point, the Premier League is basically accusing these clubs of playing with players' valuations and playing with their careers, right? And causing their careers to go stagnant because they're moving to a club where they're not going to be able to actually play. At the end of the day, it's not like you're trying to do this all in the spirit of goodwill towards these players. Then invest in grassroots football. Get away from what all that's going on. These players will be fine. They're going to continue to make their money and be able to live. And if they want to have a career, then they'll leave the club and go somewhere where they can play and have a career. They're autonomous humans. They can make their own decisions. It's obviously not as black and white as that. There's a lot of money and stuff that's involved. But at the end of the day, focus on the grassroots football and focus on actually improving football for everybody so that parity comes up instead of trying to make it trickle down. When you're not trying to make it trickle down, you're trying to force it down everybody's throat with a massive dildo. Anyways.
Well, and people on Twitter have just been pointing out all these other ridiculous deals. Ryan Brewster moved for like £25 million.
Yeah.
He had 0 Premier League appearances, 0. And the list goes on. Cole Palmer, he moved for so much money and he had next to no time.
All for potential.
It's just ridiculous. And I've been telling everybody in the group chat, I'm like, I dare the Premier League to try to prove that these deals are not above board. I dare them, because they will not be able to prove it. It is impossible, because a player's value is held by the club, and that's it. The player's value is held by the club. The club decides how much they're willing to let a player go for, and that is it. That is the end of the discussion. And if another club comes in and wants to meet that valuation, and hey, if 2 clubs want to talk about 2 separate players, one at this club, one at the other club, and they want to be like, hey, well, let's work out a deal, we'll buy this player, you guys buy this player, it's fine, it's above board. That is fair value. It just doesn't make any, it just does not make any sense. I don't understand. And this happened like that. This letter came like that. The deal for Tim, was finished at the beginning of this week, at the end of last week, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, this just happened, and the Premier League is already like, oh, you better watch out. We're going to try to crack down on this.
It's because those top 6 clubs are complaining about it, because they're seeing it, and Manchester United are like, look, Everton are going and selling these players so that they're PSR compliant, and now they can charge whatever they want for Branthwaite. That's not fair. We wanted Branthwaite for $45 million, for $35 million, and now they don't even have to sell it to him, sell him at all. Like, how is that fair to? And Manchester are like, how is that fair to us? Sir Jim Ratcliffe's like, how is that fair to us? You know what? It is because it's our player. You could have scouted him, had him before. You didn't do it, and now he's had a breakout season, and you want him and think that his value is whatever you determine it to be. You can determine his value, but you don't have the player, so good luck. You can try to unsettle the player, but it's not going to happen, because the guy's happy to play at Everton because he's getting into the England squad, even if he didn't get to the Euros. And he's a player who has a future and is playing every week in a position that is really highlighted at Everton, because we're kind of a defensive team sometimes. So he's getting all the experience he needs in that.
And and to be honest, he's playing with a center back who probably also could have been in the Euro squad ahead of Lewis Dunk this summer.
Yeah,
like he's playing with a better center back than he would play at Manchester United right now. Why would he want to leave? It doesn't make any sense.
It is what it is. We're gonna get away from that, because we've just done a lot of yelling there.
It boils my blood, and it makes a lot of people upset.
You gotta get it. So we're gonna get into our little Q&A section. We only have a few questions to answer. One of them, we have 3 questions from one guy, Mr. Cedric Sterling. You guys know him. You love him. We do too. His first question for us and it's a doozy. What are your thoughts on the non-Slice Six teams? So that is the other 14 teams in the Premier League that aren't the top six, grouping together to give a massive FU to the Prem over PSR regulations. Jake, I'll let you answer that first.
Uh, obviously we just talked about this. It's just nonsense. It's just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
And I like I said, I have to credit Dick Masters for one thing. He's got a giant set on him, does he? To
Yep.
be able to have the cheek to do this, like to just send a letter to everybody threatening them that, oh, you better watch out, you can't be doing these deals, you got to make sure that they're above board or whatever the hell the wording was. Get out of here.
Within arm's reach.
Come on. What a stupid phrase.
Right. And here's the thing. I think if the 14 clubs that aren't the top six got together and really went after the Premier League, I think it would be very bad news for the Premier League because at the end of the day, they know that their rules benefit a certain set of clubs. And those certain set of clubs know that those rules benefit them, and they're able to see that. And it's very well documented, not only amongst those clubs, but amongst the fans as well. So I think they'd be in for a real difficult situation if that happened. They're already spending so much money on legal battles with Manchester City. I think the last thing they need is 14 other clubs coming up and saying, hey, like if you aren't going to let us exist, then we can't operate. You need to let us operate in a way that is fit for us to be able to be better. So, c'est la vie. Our next question, little less controversial. What's scarier, Ashley Young playing more games at right back or the new Quiet Place movie? I'll tell you right now, I didn't think any of the Quiet Place movies are scary at all, so it's probably Ashley Young. I'm a big horror movie aficionado. A lot of modern horror doesn't scare me. So, yes, Ashley Young playing at right back is quite a scary proposition.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't think it was scary, but I liked the first Quiet Place movie. I thought it was good.
It was good, yes.
I thought it was a good film. There was one bit that like made me uncomfortable and made me sweat a little bit, but that's about it. But yeah. Ashley Young playing what is it? More games at right back.
No.
So
I'd love to see him right bench. Anyways,
Ashley Young. I know we talked about incomings, but holy cow! I was hoping that we could have somebody other than him come back. But whatever, it's fine.
You know what? Squad depth is what we need. He's a guy who knows the play, knows the system, knows the club, and knows the club in terms he's been here a year. But is set and bedded in, so we're happy to have him. Last question from Cedric: Lions or Bengals for the Super Bowl? Well, Mr. Jake likes both, so what's it going to be, buddy? The Bengals, right? You got to say the Bengals.
It's definitely it's definitely the Bengals. Look, I mean, here's the thing: Joe Burrow has never not gone to a Super Bowl after a season-ending injury. He's 1-1 in those scenarios. If you want to go further down that rabbit hole, the Super Bowl is in New Orleans this season. New Orleans is the place where Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and them boys put up about 1 billion points in the national championship game. So, quite frankly, the Lions are a great team. They're fantastic. I mean, their coach, I love Dan Campbell. Jared Goff has had a career resurgence. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a great wide receiver. They've got a great defense. They've got a great offensive line. But, I mean, we've got Jamar Chase. We've got Joe Burrow. We've got T. Higgins for another year. He's signed his franchise tender. It would be the Bengals. And that would make me feel bad because it's the Lions. And I went to a Lions game last year. I watched them play the Saints, and they're a fun team. So, but it's my team.
There you go. Well, you're all wrong. The Panthers are going to win the Super Bowl.
Bryce Young, comeback player of the year.
I would love to see it. I mean, if we go 6-13, he's comeback player, or 6-11. If we go 6-11, he's comeback player of the year because dang, we were bad. All right, last questions from Danny Boy. Do you think we will sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Easy, yes, I do. I would love to see him sign a new contract. I think that's what would work out best for all parties right now is him signing a new contract, but I do think we will sell him.
It's a sad one. I think he's gone. And here's the thing. I know he doesn't score a ton of goals now. But what he does for the team is super important. And I think it's not something that is so easily replaced. And I don't really think we have a player who could emulate right now. I think that Yusuf Chamidi could mold into something like that
I
eventually,
think so, yeah.
but he's not ready for that yet. I mean, I think he's going to play a larger role. Yusuf Chermiti is this year,
Mhm.
and that's going to be super exciting to watch for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of other Evertonians are really excited to watch him
Hope
play
so.
a lot. But watching Dom leave, it's going to really hurt because I believed in him a lot when he first started showing up in the first team. I'm like, this guy, he's gonna be a good striker, and he just went through all of the injuries, and it got tough towards the end to trust his body, not so much the player himself, but his body, and that kind of hurt because it's a player that I've loved for a long time, and um, he's kind of come into his own, and he took responsibility for being Everton's number 9. He talked about it all the time.
Yep,
It's a big
exactly that.
it's
Yes,
a big responsibility, and
put it on his shoulders. Yeah,
he ate it. He's gone through so much, and he obviously off the field he loves his fashion, and he's taken a lot of
flack.
digs at
Yeah.
for that, and he just kept doing it because he didn't care. He's been himself, and that's not it's not
Unapologetic himself.
yeah, it's not easy to find. So if he does leave, and I think he will, it's going to be a tough one
Yep,
to watch walk away.
I agree. He was definitely a player that got playing for Everton and knew what it meant, and was another player who gave his all every time he went on that pitch for Everton. So, despite the injuries, despite everything that happened to him, despite the goal, the goalless streaks and stuff, will be quite sad to see Dominic Calvert-Lewin leave when he does. I was really looking forward to hearing that Bella Ciao chant.
Oh, it's so good, isn't it?
It was really good. I was really
It's
looking forward to
so
hearing
good.
it. We're just probably not going to get to, but that's okay. C'est la vie, Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring goals for Everton. Oh, hurts.
What a
Well,
magical season he had with Carlo Ancelotti and
okay.
James Rodriguez. I mean,
Yeah.
it really bums me out that was the COVID season
Yep.
because
Oh, I know.
our supporters didn't get to watch James Rodriguez do his thing every week. They didn't get to watch Dominic Calvert-Lewin score goals for fun. They didn't get to watch us win at Anfield, and that's
Yeah.
really sad.
It's
It's
really
just it
sad.
it, it really bums me out.
Yes. Well, that is all the time we have for today. Plus, the U.S. have just lost to Panama 2-1, which means they have to
Ooh.
against Uruguay. Timothy Weah, why did you get sent off? Regardless, all right. It has been great having Jacob on today. Well, I'm sure we'll have him on again. Really good conversation. That's all we got for today. So up the toffees, y'all. Up the toffees.
Up the Toffees.
Everton,
Let's
Everton,
go.
Everton.
Let's go.
Lovely. Have a great evening, and we will see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.